Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final session on the Smart Stage of Day 2 Event Tech Live. Joining me today for this last session is Anne Planner, VP of Strategic Initiatives at eventcore. And Anne is going to be telling us how you can create a seamless attendee experience with eventcore. Anne, welcome to the session.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to give you the floor now. Very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and I'll be back with you at the end for Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today. As Adam said, my name is Anne Plana. I'm the VP of Strategic Initiatives at eventcore. I've been with eventcore for 10 and a half years now. I've been in the event space for about 15 years, so kind of a range of in my background, but a lot of the heavy on the event tech side for the last 10 years. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about creating that seamless attendee experience and how eventcore might be able to help, but just some, tips and best practices to follow. Just a quick, for those of you who don't know much about eventcore, we are a best-in-class event tech provider with a focus in registration, but we do build many other solutions. We actually were the winner of the Event Tech Awards last year for Best Registration Provider, and we're hoping to defend that title again this year. So crossing our fingers and knocking on wood, good luck to us. But we've been in the space for a long time, over 20 years. We started out kind of working on small events, specializing in on the focus needs of those programs, and kind of slowly grew a robust set of tools that our clients have come to know and love from us. We've done everything from small, intimate, or C-suite personalized programs to large enterprise organizations. We even have seen, we've all seen events grow this year, but we've had events hit almost 300,000 attendees, so very scalable. And our kind of sweet spot, our niche, if you will, is customized event tech. So building sites that meet your needs, that are built to your requirements, not a SaaS platform, not something that you have to kind of cater your needs to. I think there's a time and place for SaaS, but we really take the approach of what do you need and what do you deserve, and how can we help support that? So lots of options there. We work with a lot of really great partners to fill in areas where maybe we are not as strong. And we have what I think is kind of the secret sauce behind a lot of our programs, our really knowledgeable team of service professionals who have kind of seen it all and are really creative and excited to dig into every aspect of your program to really make sure that you get a really solid event experience as things kick off. So thinking about creating this seamless attendee experience, I kind of have boiled it down to these kind of three ideas of consistency, reliability, and relevance. I have read a lot about event planners having to become a lot more tech savvy this year. I'm sure many of you have experienced that gauntlet of learning the new tech and understanding the language of digital technology within events. And I think that that is true, but I think it's a little bit of out of necessity. And I would kind of like to argue again, kind of on eventcore's behalf, that I think that there's something to that that's important. I think it's important for us all to be educated and have like kind of some similar language. But I think it's also important to recognize that people have different skill sets and specialties. And so there's value in bringing in potentially a provider who has some of those skill sets and is the technical expert, so that you can focus on some of those more strategic areas. I think it's important for tech to add value and have meaning, so that you can focus again on those things that you're really skilled at and those strategic areas that you're really focused on. I will often use an analogy of building a house. My dad was a custom home builder, and so growing up, I watched him build many different houses. And his approach was very much about what the client needs and what they want. And so this mentality is kind of ingrained in me, I think, from a young age. But I also recognize, not everybody can have a custom house built. And at times you need to go and get your, buy something that's, maybe a ready-made house, or you're looking for the perfect house. You're shopping around and you're finding that you're going with your real estate agent. And we all have different needs, and that's okay. So we'll kind of just dig into that a little bit. And then the last thing I'll kind of say here is that I think these things are really important to keep in mind as we work through evaluating event tech providers, because your event, especially on the digital side, and especially so with registration, because that's often the first touch point for your attendees, I think it's important that you get those pieces right, because that's what people are going to come back to and interact with. And I really appreciate Event Tech Live and these types of programs where you're able to kind of get a better sense of what the different options are out there and what services they provide, so that you can have that confidence in what it is that they're offering. So let's talk a little bit about consistency. There's a couple of things that I think consistency is important in, and the first is branding. So whether you're doing a best in breed approach and using multiple suppliers, or you're using a single provider to do everything, you want your branding to make your event feel like it's a part of the same ecosystem. So even if you have an all-in-one provider, you're probably still going to be connecting to that service from a different marketing page or a landing page, something that's on your website and that's your brand, your organization's branded website. So making sure that there is that cohesion, I think, is really important. And that can look a number of different ways. It can be consistent colors, consistent images. We've even done stuff as really granular as like a pixel to pixel, like universal header and footer navigation bars. So you really truly have no idea that you've moved from one site to the other unless you're really carefully watching that domain name. And so there's a lot of options here, but again, keeping in mind what your goals are and just having that general sense of consistency. Every program is going to be a little bit different as far as how granular you want that to be. I have two examples. The first is an event that we just did in March that we helped co-plan with one of our partners, Hub. And this is an event called Untethered. We did that with them last year, and then again in the March. And we really wanted to make sure that things felt consistent across the program. So the image kind of in the left in the back is the landing page that our system hosted. So it was actually a marketing page that we hosted for the event. And then as you move through registration, you kind of saw that same banner image throughout Reg. And then the image to the right or kind of in front is the image or the kind of layout for the Hub digital venue. And you can see there's a lot of consistent colors, there's consistent fonts, consistent themes, things that make you feel like you're part of one solution. This next example is from Microsoft Build, and this is a program that we've supported for many years. This is their most recent iteration. And you can see the image on the left, kind of in the background, is their Microsoft owned landing page and how they've designed kind of that digital layout as people come in and register for the program or even view content. On the right or in the front is our site, the registration experience that someone might see when they're going through that process. And again, you can see those consistent colors, the consistent image, and you even have some of that consistent navigation across the top of the page, and that actually carries through into the footer as well. Going a little bit beyond look and feel, I want to talk about authentication. This is an area that I think is often overlooked or people maybe dismiss because they think it's hard. This is, I think important both from a consistent authentication process across all the systems. Again, if you're using multiple providers, that single sign-on experience where everything is the same, or even if you are using one provider and they're doing all of that. But I think it's important to have consistent or familiar authentication options as well. I don't know about you, but I feel like I have 1,000 different passwords that I have to try to remember all the time. And it's whenever I have an opportunity to use LinkedIn or a Microsoft account or even my Facebook account, like I will take that opportunity simply because it just is one less thing that I have to remember. And it's convenient. I recommend, safe and different passwords for each of those systems so that you have kind of that uniqueness across the board from a security perspective. But having some of those familiar things I think is really important for attendees to feel comfortable with the system. And then again, I can't underscore enough, like if you're using multiple providers, making sure that you have that single sign-on experience. With eventcore, we have a lot of different identity providers that we're ingrained with and we can do all kinds of things with regularly. We've also done custom or domain credentials. So I can't say who it was, but we had a client who's a large online real estate company, and they had credentials that they used for their platform, and they were doing a user conference and they wanted people to use those same credentials. And we were able to authenticate everyone with those same credentials so that it was just really easy for that audience to get into the site and have that really, it felt very personalized experience because they were using those credentials that they were familiar with. The third area of consistency would be data flow. So whether it's across your platform or uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought there looking at my notes. Whether it's across your platform or other platforms, or you're talking about year to year, carryover of data, I think it's really important that those profiles and that attendee profile, if you will, it flows seamlessly and is in as close to real time as possible, so that if someone changes something in one program, it carries over to the other. Things are integrating and working well together. We do this a lot with different planning systems, travel or air bookings, different marketing automations and CRM systems, on-site badging vendors, and the different virtual event platforms, all these different areas. And there's many more, mobile, lots of different other areas. But having a clear plan and a team of people that understand how the data is flowing, where it needs to interact, and where changes need to be made and saved in that process. It enables you to have the data at your fingertips when you want it and where you want it, so that you have confidence in the decisions that you're making and that they are data-driven and up to date. Kind of moving into that second recommendation, so consistency and now reliability. I want to talk about reliability kind of in two different approaches. The first is the infrastructure, and the second will be from a relationship perspective. Within infrastructure, this to me is one of the most important things that I think you as an event planner can really think about, other than kind of what the user experience is, but is understanding and being aware of how your providers are using your data. It's so critical this day and age. So much is online, and we've all seen how data has been misused over the years. It's just important to really understand what your provider is doing. So from EventCore's perspective, your data is your data. We're not ever going to take that and market to your attendees or sell that data. That is your data. We just are processing that and holding that for you. We safeguard it. We're GDPR compliant, PCI level 1. We process, I think, $8 million in revenue, over $1 million for our clients annually. So we take these things very seriously. We also have a SOC 2 assessment that is available for review, and we're in the process of completing our ISO 27001, which should be expected later this year. And both of those, are third-party audit systems that they're not necessarily industry standards at this point, but we believe that they both show kind of our commitment to excellence in this area and commitment to security and privacy, and having that third party, go through those systems and validate kind of what we say we're doing is actually happening. I think is really important for people who are handling data in this way to really think about carefully. Again, it not only is important for you as you think about what your data looks like or the data that you're accessing, but also giving your attendees that sense of security so that they can feel confident in what it is that you are doing with their data. And if they ask, exactly whose hands it's in. In addition to kind of that security and privacy aspect, there's redundancies that you want to keep in mind. Our systems are replicated across multiple regions, so you have low latency and high availability. If one area goes down, you have that up, and that's kind of all that cloud infrastructure. We also are scalable. We do load testing on our sites. As I mentioned, we did an event that was about 300,000 registrants in the database, so it's pretty large number these days. And we've seen registrations at 50 registrants per second or up to 1,200 registrations per minute. The math is a little different because you don't usually see that same volume over the entire minute, but you get that idea. And so our teams are ready to scale, ready to make sure that your stuff is, your sites and your event are going to stay up, and everyone's going to have access when they need to have access. And again, just asking these questions, understanding it. Maybe it's not necessary for your program. It's, you're not expecting high volume or, significant load, but still understanding and being aware of these types of questions to ask, I think will set you up for a lot of success as you plan your program and select the provider that you're going to use for your program. Speaking about relationships, there's kind of these three areas that I think when you have a reliable relationship with your tech provider, you're going to get service-based solutions. You're going to find you have collaborative teams, and it's going to allow you to have your strategic focus. Of course, coming from eventcore, I'm a little biased because I think that a service-based solution is a great way to go. That's what we do rather than a SaaS solution. But again, I do think there's times and places for SaaS. It just kind of depends on what your goals are. I think with the service-based model, you get a little bit of an extra layer of support. So if something goes wrong or you need a question or even just like an outside opinion, you have that team available to you and they can share the wealth of knowledge that they have from seeing the hundreds, if not thousands of events they've seen recently or in the course of their career. And that can really give you a leg up when you're thinking about your event strategy. At eventcore, our team is in the trenches with you. And so we are understanding your program, learning your objectives and goals. We aren't just giving you access and a license and giving you a seat and leaving you off to design it all yourself. We're really with you every step of the way to make sure that you have what it is that you need. And then our teams are very passionate. They're fueled by creativity. I think, everyone on our team is looking for a new and exciting event to do. They're all very eager to come up with a new and creative solution. And like I said earlier, it's kind of the secret sauce behind eventcore in a lot of ways. Our clients just really rely on us to do that heavy lifting with the tech so that they can focus on their core strategy. And appreciate that they don't have to be the tech expert because we can be that expert for them. One quick example is a client that we had where they had, I think at the end of the day, it really was just a miscommunication. They understood a piece of, it wasn't our technology, it was another partner. They were expecting something to happen with that other partner's technology. And when they learned that that was not the case and how it would actually operate, they were a little concerned. They weren't sure how things were going to kind of play out. And so we all got on the phone, we talked about what their end goals were, and eventcore was able to make some adjustments and pivot with them to help support the program. Again, keeping the goal in mind of having a successful event, making sure that the client was satisfied and the attendee was getting the best experience possible. We were able to embed some technology, in this case a player on our site that was specific to the player that the client wanted. And that player was not able to include the chat capability, and they really needed that piece. And so we actually were able to create almost from scratch a brand new chat tool within a matter of weeks, where we could get that up, we could moderate it, we could download a transcript and do a number of things that they needed, and really trying to be nimble. Now, I don't share this example because I'm not saying you can come to eventcore and get something built in 2 weeks. That's not necessarily common, but what is common is our team's ability to really understand and strive towards finding a solution and being solution oriented and really respecting those relationships, not just with the client, but also with the partner. Our goal is not to throw another partner under the bus, but to work together towards an end result. We all know things come up. We all work in events. Nothing is ever perfect. And continuously reminding ourselves of that. And again, working towards that solution is a huge part of the culture at eventcore. And then my last point about being relevant. So being relevant to me is, again, kind of about choosing the right platform, choosing the right partner, understanding the goals and objectives of your program, of your organization, and what's going to work well for you. That doesn't, again, one size doesn't fit all. And even eventcore is not one, as much as I would love to do every program, like there are programs that are better suited for other providers, and that's okay. And so understanding that, and as you're going through that process of understanding your goals and objectives, think about the features that are necessary, what are the nice to haves, what are the things that are going to show value that you are willing to invest in, or the things that maybe you can live without that are maybe just distractions at the end of the day. And then think about how it's going to be built, and if it'll be built to spec, how much you're going to have to not do. That's probably not the right word. I can't think of the right one, but what are you going to have to give up if you go with one solution, or what maybe you would gain if you go with another? So there's lots of different things to consider there. Um, and I think, finding the solution that's going to best suit those needs is really going to be to your best example. The again, the house analogy applies here as well, right? Not everybody needs a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Like I have a family, I have 3 kids, like that would not work for us. But I also know that like my house that's in the country and has a little bit more square footage is not going to work for one of my colleagues who likes to be in the heart of Seattle and downtown and close to everything. And all they need is that 1 bedroom or even studio. So everybody's looking for something different. And I think that's okay. Our CEO, Mark Johnson, did a presentation yesterday. He was talking about this. And I think it was you, Adam, who was with him and equated this to kind of cars, right? Cars are going to, a truck, a car, a convertible, whatever it is going to get you from A to B, but they all have different functionality and different reasons to choose a different type of vehicle, depending on where you're going and what it is that you want to do when you get there. So a lot of things to consider there. And I know there's a lot of options out there, so I'm not trying to overwhelm you with, go research every provider that's out there and kind of narrow it down. But really just keep these goals and objectives that you have top of mind as you evaluate. And remember to think about the other piece of advice I can say is think about where you are now and where you're headed with your program. To use another analogy, I think of like a snail or a crab, right? They will grow out of their shell at some point, and then they leave their shell and they go find a new shell that's a bigger home for them. I really like those home analogies, I guess. And just so keep thinking about that and what's going to work for you. Don't go through a ton of effort to try and find a new solution if it's only going to, that's a lot of energy to spend if it's going to work for you for 1 year. Think about what's going to be a better solution as you get to that 2-year and 3-year mark. And again, this is where I think eventcore's strength really lies in that you can, because we're building to spec, we can scale with you as you grow. So we can build what you need this year, and then we can build what you need next year. And you're going to pay for the services that you use. You're not paying for the extra things when you don't need them. And then you're not, paying for or having to compromise on your functionality in future years because that provider doesn't include those in their current offering. So, what it is, what does your event deserve? And, how can you make sure that you're set up for the best success as you move forward? Mark, our CEO who shared yesterday, talked a little bit about CES, and this is just kind of another recent example. We provided the registration services for CES this year, which was the first year they were all digital. We worked with a number of partners as they provided that service, and that's a really great case study that you can go back and listen to when these are on demand next week. We also have a webinar on our website that you can access if you want to learn more about that. And that's really fun because it's our eventcore tech PM, the agency partner Opus's PM, and actually one of the clients talking about their experience working together and some of the things that we did. And it's a great example for us as well because it's technology that we built for them for their particular program so that they could evaluate and do some back-end processes really effectively without having to compromise those front-end user experiences. I have a few quick examples. I feel like I'm talking fast, but I just wanted to give a few examples of kind of how we've been able to tailor some unique scenarios for our clients based on them coming to us with some very unique requests. This isn't going to showcase our kind of core elements of registration and the different complex attendee flows or the agendas and the sessions and the online streaming. We actually have a new player that we have where we can do live streaming content or on-demand content. I'm not going to showcase those. We'd be happy to do a demo with you to highlight those later one-on-one, but this is more specific examples of things that we've built and how we've tailored solutions to meet specific client needs. So this first one is a nomination invitation portal that we built for a program where there was a large number of different groups that were inviting people to an event, and they needed to be able to invite those different groups and manage different allocation blocks. So this is one particular allocation block. And we had bulk upload, individual upload. There was a duplication kind of prevention. So if one group invited person A and group two tried to invite person A, the system would say, hey, this person's already been invited, so you don't lose an invitation spot to somebody being invited twice. A lot of really cool things that were happening here. One of my favorite things was that the managers of those invitations could re-trigger an invite. So if someone was like, I never got my invite, you could re-trigger it to them. It's not shown on this dashboard, but in one evolution of it, we were able to download that invitation and they could send it directly. We even had a way for the person who was doing the nomination to identify what language that should be sent in. We had a couple of different languages where the invitation was built out so it could be triggered to that person more localized. Group management functionality was developed because we had a large number of programs where clients would bring a large number of people, whether they were clients they were bringing, or maybe it was an organization that, you know, an administrative assistant was registering 10 or 20 people. So there was a lot of functionality tied into that, where they could pay in bulk. The person who was overseeing it all could see everybody's status if they had, if their hotel had been confirmed. If they had gone in and added anything, maybe they would have had a payment that was due for some add-on element. They could re-trigger invitations to also tie into their credentials if they needed to associate credentials to get access to the mobile app. So all kinds of different things there. Housing, which I know we don't all need necessarily just yet, but hoping that it will come back soon. Systems that are able to pull in different blocks from the hotel and allow for allocations there. Filters so that you can find the right hotel. We did an event that had over 70 hotels, and so being able to sort and filter was really important. Payments, again, really important to be able to process credit cards and offline payments. We can do over 100 different currencies, and we developed some functionality that would allow for discount codes. So people could do like promotions and encourage people to register at different times and get like $50 off or save 10%, that sort of thing. And one of our most recent things was this great tool called eventcore Meet that allows you to do in conferencing video, again, developed for people to do roundtables and one-to-one networking in small groups. And then finally, our on-site statistics dashboard that was created especially around the concept of multiple check-in locations, satellite locations, which I think will kind of be a thing once we start to come back, keeping people dispersed. You can keep an eye on where everybody's checking in, where your materials are at, if you need to send somebody to, you know, drop off more badging or collateral, all kinds of things that make this data really valuable, having it at your fingertips. So I know I'm right here at time. I hope we can get a few questions answered, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or give our team a call or visit our website, and we'd be happy to chat with you more about some of the offerings that eventcore can provide. And I hope that these tools and tips will give you some guidance as you think about what tech vendor to work with on your next event.
Anna, fantastic presentation. Thank you very much for going through all the details. I think you would like what I would class as like the unicorn partner, because from what I saw there, there's pretty much nothing that you can't do. And I know so many industry professionals out there have been really frustrated with not being able to have the level of customization, not being able to have the level of integration, not the level of clarity on where things and how things are interacting with each other. And I've actually become really highly frustrated with how restrictive some platforms feel to them out there. So it's great to see that there is a company out there like you that's, you know, heading those challenges really head on. I mean, the fact that you've been able to scale and deliver an event of the size of CES. I know Mark told us about that yesterday, which was super insightful as well. So, you know, fair play to you. One quick question: Did you steal my car analogy? Did I? Is that what I mean? You can have it.
I did.
It's fine.
Thank you. I did try to give you credit. I really liked it. I always use the house analogy because it is so familiar to me, but I love it when I can hear another one that works just as well. And I think it's a great, relatable one that everyone can understand.
Oh, thank you. Well, but by all means, use it. Don't feel that you can totally steal it. Don't feel the need to credit me. I think one of the first things that came to mind through your presentation was that seamless transition, especially when it came to brands. So people, so attendees, even though through the flow of them moving from event website through to registration, payment processing, it all felt consistent and all felt as one part, all as one part of
Yeah.
the same system, even though it might not have been. And I think that's really important at the moment because there's so many there's so much of our society that's told and warned about when things go off to another site or somewhere else, especially around payment, and it doesn't necessarily quite
Hmm.
look right. That there needs to be cautious, and for an event organizer, that could be quite dangerous, especially if it's around revenue, because that could mean a huge drop off to potential ticket buyers or sponsors and things like that. Is that something that
Hmm.
you've found that's really been a benefit to your approach?
Yeah, I think so. The branding and just having everything in one place uh, is so important. Like you said, I've registered. I think those of us who work in event tech, we become a little bit of event tech snobs and familiar with our own technology. And I register for programs all the time, and run across things that I'm like, oh, well, that was awkward. Like, that was confusing. Why did this happen that way? And I think we don't hear that from our clients. We hear that it was smooth, it was easy, everything was where it was supposed to be. Clients or attendees don't know that they're on one site or the other. We'll get customer service calls where they're like, I need help on this page. And it's not a page we own, but they think it is because it looks like ours, right? And so I think that's a testament to kind of our success in being able to do that. And our team is really committed to making things intuitive and easy for the attendee, because if they're not happy, you're going to hear about it, and if you're not happy, we're going to hear about it. And we just want to try to get it right to begin with. And not everything's perfect, but we learn every time, and we want to bring our knowledge to the table and those best practices to help you be successful and you have that first impression be as flawless as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that nicely brings me on to my second question for you. And this is something that keeps coming up consistently now. Like, in your opinion, what questions should planners out there be asking their vendor? Hopefully, they've got all the questions and they just come to you today. So, I mean, it's all been answered. But let's be realistic. They may be using other vendors. They may be in contracts a little bit longer. They may just want to prepare themselves. Like, what questions should they
Yeah.
be asking vendors around security and data privacy? I know you mentioned SOC 2 and ISO 27001, although they're not industry standards. Is it that kind of thing that they should be focusing, or are there other questions that they can kind of sense check and make
Yeah.
sure that the vendors are where they're supposed to be?
I mean, you can be more general than specific. SOC and ISO, I don't think there's very many tech providers who actually meet those standards. Again, because it's not really an industry standard, but it's more of an industry standard from a security perspective, not from an event perspective. I think we'll see more people go that route, but we're excited to be one of the first. But I think just generally understanding what the partners are doing with that data. Do you sell your do you keep my attendee data, or does that belong to me? Are you putting that in your database? Are you marketing to them? Are you selling their information? What are your cultural standards around security? We work with a lot of clients that will email us a credit card, and we're like, whoa, don't do that. Like, that's not okay, And they're like, oh, but our previous vendor didn't have an issue with that. And we're like, that is just not cool. So our team is really trying to do a lot of, time educating our staff so that we can help educate our clients. So asking about the culture of security, asking about where that data is stored, when they purge that data. We archive or redact data in our systems after a certain period of time when it's no longer necessary, because we don't want to be holding that, and our clients don't want us to be holding that data. If there's a business need, there's obviously, that's event by event. But just understanding that your attendees data is important to be careful with, and just kind of thinking about that. How would you want your data to be handled? And I think that's a really good guiding factor.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Just as a follow-up question to that, something that's just popped into my head there, and it's an opinion question. Do you think there'll be a day when attendees, or there's a technology or something in place for attendees to get full traceability and transparency on every touch point that their data has gone through? So maybe it's gone to a sponsor or it's been used for an event app or something like that. Do you think we'll get to that point, or do you think attendees will require that of us as event planners?
We're close to it. I mean, a lot of what GDPR requires does hit on a lot of those things. You don't necessarily have to have the portal to see every little detail, but I could see it happening. I mean, whether it will or won't, no one has that crystal ball, but I could definitely see the case for that and the demand for that, whether it's attendee regulated or governmental. Um, and it goes back to a lot of what we have been trying to, the nut we've been trying to crack this last year with all digital events. And there's so much data, it actually makes sponsorship and, those kinds of opportunities more valuable if we can understand how to actually use that data well. And I think it's important to remember when we're talking about data. I know I said this to you before, but there's a lot of power in that data is important, and so it's really important that we take that with great responsibility and care. We there's the saying, like, this is why we can't have nice things. Like, we want that data. We want to be able to use that data for the reasons that make sense and will mutually benefit both sponsors and attendees and event planners, all the different stakeholders. But if we let that get abused, then we will lose access to that. And not to say a portal means you're losing access, but it just puts more overhead on it, that makes things a little bit trickier. And if that were to happen, I think we would have a lot of providers who would be having to do some digging and maybe some explaining about how they're using that data and where it's going, kind of at the end of the day.
I totally agree. And I think, just as my final thought, with, big tech, Google, Apple, we're seeing them really lock down on privacy, really actually selling that as a benefit to their end users of
Mm-hmm.
using those technologies. It's getting harder for companies and businesses to use what has been very much relied on for maybe the last couple of decades in terms of digital marketing, ad tracking, Facebook, those kind of things. I actually believe, if as an industry we approach this in the right way and we do put the value on it, and we treat it
Mm-hmm.
carefully, that attendee data, I think there's a huge opportunity for our sector to be somewhat of a golden haven for companies that want to reach niche and keen and interested audiences and be able to still market to them in a digital way with some level of understanding, as our jobs as event organizers, to tease some of that key information out of them, that key personality information, buying trends, all that kind of stuff. But like you said, if we abuse that, that's going to get taken out of our hands. So it's really important that
Yeah.
we treat that very carefully. And thank you very much for coming on. Last
Yeah.
session,
Thanks
but
for
for
having
me,
me.
one of the most interesting sessions of the day. For anybody watching this now or on demand, please do reach out to Anne and the team at eventcore. It sounds like no mountain too tall, no valley too deep, that they can help you with your event tech woes, or just deliver a great service on what you're already getting. Once again, thanks, Anne, and to all the attendees. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Smart Stage.
Thanks so much.